Hi. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to more Mushoku Tensei. Uh, so uh, we have a Minecraft server. Yay. Pretty cool. Oh, you know, yeah. All right. It's weird. Stop. Stop making religions based around me. So fucking awkward. All right. Hi, everybody. Yeah, Minu's not here today. We're doing Mushoku Tensei. Ah, have you guys been? I haven't talked to some of you in a week. Others I haven't talked to since yesterday. But I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing well. Keep forgetting to ask if I quit Genshin. No, I didn't quit Genshin. I haven't played in a long time. That's what it is. I didn't quit. If there were any codes, nobody ever posted them. That was the one time I was gonna jump back on. So if there were like new codes for an update, I was gonna get those and get Supremos, but like I haven't been doing anything. Like I mentioned as much to Tony yesterday. I was like, dude, when Destiny came out, I stopped. I was like, yeah, I'm done with Genshin for a while until like the next. I'm probably done with Genshin until the next major expansion. Like I do know that they opened up the chasm. I don't know if the chasm is going to be a limited time, but they need to open up the next major area. And so I'm very upset. I'm very upset by the fact that I've just been sitting there spending time on stuff that I don't necessarily need to. The chasm is permanent. Good to know. But I want like whatever the next area is supposed to be, which I think is the India place, the place of knowledge or whatever. But like when the next major Archon thing happens, I do know that they added a new Archon quest that has Dainsleif. I do know that that has happened, but I mean, I'm hoping for more because I want more about what's going on with the siblings. But yeah, I haven't touched Genshin in a while. I have no real interest in doing it at the moment. Like I'm enjoying the story of Genshin, but I'm one of those people I need to just run through the story quickly and just experience that story. I'm not as I'm not as obsessed anymore with all the side stuff because I've got so many other games that I have to play and I can't just keep jumping back in. Jesus. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you managed to get some stuff like that. But I mean, there's not a lot of characters that I necessarily want. Like if Ayaka comes out again, I might get her, but it's not something like I know that her brother's available now, and it's like it is what it is. But I'm not like desperate to get the characters. The allure of the gotcha system has run its course. So no 5-star though. Oh, she's next. Dope. All right. That having been said though, I'm gonna stop talking about that and we're gonna get to it. So last we left off, there was a big wedding reception, and we made it about halfway through, and then we found out that Alenelise is actually the grandmother of Sylphie, and she broke down and had to go to another room, and so that's kind of what's happening. People are slowly leaving. So, chapter 7, end of the wedding reception. Guys, remember that if you redeem exercises, please do it during the chapter. Don't do it after I finish the chapter. I'm not going to count those uh, for that exercise period. So if you're going to redeem exercises, do them during the chapter, and then after a chapter, I will do those exercises. Like I have no problem with it. Absolutely here for it. And yeah, okay, good, good to know. All right, so yeah, man. Also, there's not going to be a Wednesday D&D stream, so I will probably play some more Witch Queen or something this week on stream on Wednesday to kind of make up for that. All right. Thank you guys So I will see you. Uh, I will see to any and all exercises after each chapter. That's how it goes. All right. I didn't get a lot of sleep this morning, so I am excessively sleepy. I apologize. I will try and get through these 3 chapters, and then I'm probably gonna pass out for a little bit, have a nap. No lie. Okay, I have been reading a lot more slime lately, way past volume 6. I am on volume 12 right now, and I'm more or less rereading everything so I have it fresh in my head because Tuesday is when volume 13 drops, and that should be coming in the mail. So that should be getting delivered Tuesday afternoon. So I'm gonna spend a lot of time on Tuesday reading the next volume, and I'm really looking forward to it. The next one, volume 14, I believe, is in July. That's some craziness. And then at the end of the month is the next volume of Mushoku Tensei on Kindle. So end of April, get my new Mushoku Tensei book. No, no, Daxter. If I go to sleep now, the reading will be postponed to next week. It's just not happening, bro. I appreciate you guys being worried about me and my health, but yeah, I went to bed at about like 5 in the morning because I'm an idiot that stayed up reading. Like I've started reading before I go to bed, but the problem is I want to keep reading. I'm like, I'll read till I get tired. And the problem is that because I'm reading, my brain doesn't get tired, even though my body technically is. And being ADHD, the brain is what keeps me awake. My brain is what keeps me awake. So I only got 5 hours today because I woke up at around 10 and I was like, why did I wake up this early, body? My body's like, oh. I'm like, well, and then my body's the one that punishes me for it waking me up early. So that's why you're going to hear a lot more sniffling and the yawning and all that stuff. If my sinuses get too bad, I will stop it. But I mean, chapters on Mushoku Tensei are not notoriously long. I fell asleep right before daily reset, so yeah, woke up 2 to 3 hours ago. Oh boy, been there with getting caught reading too long. Yeah, dude, I have a lot of problems with me reading. Yeah, yeah, it's a thing. That's why I have to start relegating. But I'm gonna take it a bit easier on the reading because uh I'm going through the Slime Light novels too fast now. I am a third of the way through volume 12, and I have to hold that until Tuesday. I have to, so I have tomorrow and Monday that I need to take my time because a lot of what I've been doing is I've been staying up all night reading, and I will finish a light novel. I will finish most of a light novel in one night. I will get 3/4 of it done in one night, finish it, and start the next one. It's been pretty bad. I have a problem, clearly, but it's a problem I enjoy. Of of all the problems I have, it's the it I mean, it's annoying, but it's definitely the nicest of them. Oh man. I'm also really excited. I watched the reaction channel Reanimated as well as Freshest Anime, and I subscribed to their Patreon. And they recently watched the very first episode of Welcome to Demon School Itamakun, and I'm like, bro, they were laughing really hard at it. I don't think I ever watched the very first episode. I kind of just already knew what had happened, or like I had been told what had happened in the first episode, so I started with episode 2. So I don't think I ever actually watched the very first episode, so seeing it for the first time with them and watching them break down laughing at it and how silly it was, I was like, yes, please continue this series. This series is so good. And I do need to watch another thing that they're doing. They are going to be reacting to, well, they've reacted to the first 2 episodes of Bungo Stray Dogs, and I hope they keep up with that series too. It's a really good series. Uh, that reminds me, season 3 of Irma-kun starts in October. So hope you guys are looking forward to the fall. I believe, yeah, fall. Uh, so Yeah, we get season 3 of Iruma-kun. Hope everybody's looking forward to that. I really, really want more evil Iruma, but I mean, I know that's not a thing they're gonna give us a lot, and I'm very sad about that. All right, let's get to it. Chapter 7, End of the Wedding Reception. I don't know why I said it like that. That makes it sound way more intense than it actually is. End of the wedding reception. I mean, I know it's coming up, but it doesn't mean I have to announce it like that. The end of the wedding reception. The reception was a success. We didn't seal our promise with a kiss or exchange rings, but spent the whole time eating, drinking, chatting, and having a good time. I appreciated the ease and informality of it. Thank you. If more weddings were just that, just the reception, like, hey, come on, let's just hang out, eat food, drink, and chat. Weddings would be so much easier. Just do the law thing. If you need a sign that you're married, then Rudy pulls a Will Smith when someone says his wife's name. Uh, uh, so he resigns from the school because Will Smith resigned from the academy last night. That was the thing. Anyway, do you hear Irma's archery mentor? Oh, that's I don't know anything about that. So like, anime only as far as Irma goes. I'm aware of what you meant, but I was talking about the aftermath of it. Anyway, we broke into groups of 2 or 3 when it was time to go home. The first to bid us goodbye were Linnea and Persenna. Perhaps it was considered good manners among the beast folk not to linger too long. Well, Mew, enjoy yourself, boss. Now you really are the boss of the school. I'm looking forward to the next semester. After saying that, the two of them began trudging home through the snow. The second to leave was Nanahoshi, with whom Luke had randomly struck up a conversation. Most of it was him trying to hit on her, though he wasn't being completely transparent about it. He made a concerted effort to talk about food and clothes, topics it seemed Nanahoshi might be interested in. He was good at sounding interested in a topic the other person cared about, even though he was a bit out of his element here. Still, it was educational. Not that I intended to make use of such knowledge. Nanahoshi, on the other hand, made no attempt to disguise how clearly bothered she was by him. She looked at him in annoyance. She sighed in annoyance. In the end, she ran to the bathroom just to escape him. When she reemerged, she came straight over to where I was, looking agitated. It's about time for me to leave. That one's annoying. To leave? It's about time for me to leave. That one's annoying me. Darn it. Hey, no, stop. There. There. All right, then. If you're exhausted, thank you for coming today, I said. I'll be counting on your help again tomorrow. And one more thing. What's that? What's that? Sometime in the future, can I use your bath? Apparently, she'd gotten a look at our bathroom while on the way to the restroom. As a fellow Japanese person, she probably missed baths. Her name was Shizuka, after all. Sure, but you might have Nobita peeking in at you. Forget I said anything. No, I'm just joking, honestly. You can come anytime. Nanahoshi nodded and started to leave. The sun hadn't set yet, but I wondered if she would be safe walking home alone, even though she'd come here herself and had magic items for her own protection. Ah, escort Master Silent back to her residence, please. Yes, Princess. While I was hesitating over what to do, the princess moved to send one of her attendants as an escort. I should have expected it if someone with such charisma. Should have expected it of someone with such charisma. However, Nanahoshi stubbornly refused the offer and went home by herself. Next were Zenoba and Julie, then Batty Gaddy. Batty Gaddy, Zenoba, and Ariel had all shared drinks while happily chatting amongst themselves. Since I knew of Batty's affinity for alcohol, I'd prepared an appropriate amount just to be sure, but it appeared he hadn't been enough. Before I knew it, 2 of the 3 wine casks I'd stashed in the basement were empty. I debated sending out for more, but before I could, Zenoma got hammered. You sure are weak for a blessed child, Batty Gaddy chortled. Uh, I'm ashamed. It seems I got carried away. Master, are you okay? Tiny Julie was trying to support Zenoba as he stumbled. Maybe you should rest in one of the rooms here, Ariel suggested. She hadn't drunk that much herself. Keeping her wits about her was probably part of her training as a highborn lady. Everything she did was poised, elegantly, from the way she tipped her cup to the way she laughed. She was probably a bit tipsy, but the faint blush the alcohol gave her just made her more charming. No, as a pupil and proud member of the Chiron noble family, it already brings me shame to be so utterly inebriated in my own master's house. I'll take my leave while I can still walk. Zenoba came to say his farewells to me. Personally, I'd have been fine with him staying in our guest room. Well, whatever he wanted to do. Suppose I should be off too. Princess of oh no. Suppose I should be off too. Princess of Asura, stay well, said Batty Gaddy. Yes, your highness. I hope you will stay in good health as well. I don't get sick or injured. And so both Zenoba and Batty Gaddy took their leave. Huh. I thought for sure they would be the last ones to leave. The reception drew to a close as Ariel and her group prepared to depart. While they were doing that, I decided to check on Lynn Lease. I went up to the second floor and peeked into the guest room. I was greeted by an exciting display. No, not the sexual kind, just a Elise using Cliff's lap as a pillow. Apparently, he was done comforting her and they'd moved on to the lovey-dovey bits. I felt kind of envious. I'd have to do the same with Sylphie later. Um, Mr. Cliff, I'd like to talk to Grandma. I mean, Miss Elise. Do you mind? Sylphie asked timidly as she crept up behind me. Cliff looked at me as if he were asking for help. Elise lifted her head and lifted herself up and nodded at me. At me? Nodded back. Jesus Christ, man. I am all over the place today. At that, Cliff stood up and left the room. Thanks, Rudy. Sylphie smiled softly before heading inside. Cliff and I headed down the stairs together. He looked anxious. Are those two going to be okay? If they aren't, we just have to be there for them afterward, I replied as we made our way to the ground floor. When we arrived, Ariel and her lot had just finished their preparations to depart. The two attendants were helping Ariel slip her coat on. When she saw me, she dipped her chin. Lord Rudius, thank you for today. The rest of her party likewise bowed deeply. I bowed in return, Japanese style, though I was pretty sure I wasn't supposed to do that in this situation. How's Sylphie doing? Ariel asked. She's talking to Elise right now. I see. It was certainly a surprise to find out Sylphie had family here. I thought she'd lost all of them. Indeed, it really is a small world. Not to mention that Elise and Sylphie were as different as night and day, mainly in terms of chastity. In any case, this is the perfect opportunity. Lord Rudius, may I have a moment of your time? Her words hinted at an ulterior motive, but I nodded anyway. Very well then, come this way. Very well then, come this way. As she spoke, Ariel quickly cut across the room and moved into the hallway. From there, she proceeded to the front entryway, opened the door, and headed outside. As if it came as naturally as breathing to them, the other three trailed her. I followed suit. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. Ariel stopped along the path where people had been walking, and the snow had barely had a chance to pile up. She turned back to look at me. Lord Rudius, I realize it might be inappropriate of me to ask. A moment's hesitation. Would you agree to a duel with Luke? No magic, just sword against sword. A very sudden request. Unable to respond, I pursed my lips. Luke looked completely composed, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. It was clearly not something Ariel had decided on the spur of the moment. Could you explain your reasoning at least? She just smiled softly. Just for fun. For fun? I said, and Luke unsheathed what was a very real sword. Considering it was a double-edged, I wasn't going to be, he wasn't going to be hitting me with the blunt side. Can we use wooden swords at least? I don't have a real sword. I don't mind if you conjure one for yourself, she replied. I thought you said no magic. I'm fine with you using it to create a weapon. Very well, then. I used my earth magic to create a stone blade. I made it thick and durable, which meant that it was heavy, too. I did my practice swings every day so I could wield it just fine. But if it hit someone in the wrong spot and the worst came to pass, they could die. It wasn't something you should hit someone with for fun. Don't worry, Ariel said. This is something Luke requested. Luke did. I don't mind if you use your full power to beat him. Oh, I don't mind if you use your full power to beat him senseless. Without my magic, I was just an average swordsman. There was no guarantee I could beat him senseless. For reference, Luke is an intermediate in sword god style and a beginner in water god style. His sword is a magic item made to cut through steel shields as easily as butter. His boots are the same as Sylphie's, giving him a boost to the wearer's speed. His cloak can block heat, his gloves increase his strength, and beneath his uniform he's wearing sword-proof clothing. That's incredible. So he was garbed head to toe in a dashing hero's gear. Even selling my freshly renovated house wouldn't get me enough money to pay for all that. In other words, I might be the one getting beat senseless. I doubt it, but if you do sense your life is in danger, feel free to use magic. I'll just pray he doesn't cut me in half before I get the chance. Why did he propose this in the first place? None of us would benefit from someone dying here. Before we begin, I'd like you to tell me why we're doing this. Have I done something to upset you? I asked. No, it's just for fun. Of course, you can refuse if you'd like. Whether I accept or not, this troubles me. Even this stone sword is deadly enough that it could kill someone if I hit them in the wrong place. Luke is prepared for that possibility. Well, I wasn't. I was newly married, and I didn't want to kill or be killed. Please, Ariel said. Her voice was somber. What was this match going to prove? Maybe it was some kind of Asura Kingdom tradition? I could easily picture Old Man Sorrow saying, If you want to take Eris as your wife, you must defeat me first! But Soros was dead. Rudius, please accept. If you're a man, then you should understand, Luke said. There it was, the if you're man line. An unfair remark. It was almost like he was saying I wasn't a man because I didn't understand. Ah, well, it's not like we were seriously going to go at each other's throats. All right, please be gentle with me then. I was going to use my demon eye of foresight at least. I didn't want anyone to die accidentally. Thank you for accepting our request. I still didn't understand why we were doing this, but at Ariel's words, Luke readied himself. As soon as Cliff saw that, he called out to me confused. Hey, Rudius? You sure about that? Oh, Master Cliff, if things start looking bad, please cast a healing spell immediately. Yeah, I was already planning on that. Stone sword in hand, I slowly took a stance of my own. We were about 3 steps apart. That meant 1 step and we could swing at each other. It was closer than the distance I normally set for myself in my simulations. Now then, are you ready? Yes. After hearing my confirmation, Ariel said sharply, Begin! Luke bellowed and kicked off the ground. As the snow scattered, he launched his body toward mine. And there we go. And now we move on to the next page. He was slow. No, compared to the average person, he probably wasn't that slow. He was probably about as quick as Linnea, but still slow enough that I could predict his moves. He was nowhere at Eris's or Regard's level, never mind Orsted's. He was probably a step behind Soldat, too. This was all he could muster, even with a magic item? Luke closed in, swinging his sword diagonally. His form was technically correct, and he was putting his weight into the swing. He wasn't relying too much on his magical items either, but he still moved much more slowly than my mental simulations. Ha! I aimed for his forearm, sword god style, initial strike, arm chop. It was a skill I'd learned long ago, a movement ingrained in me through hundreds of thousands of practice swings. Gah! The weight of my blade broke his arm in a single swing. He dropped his sword and it disappeared into the snow below. Not yet! Luke immediately tried to pick it up with his left hand. No, it's over. I prevented him from grabbing the sword by slamming a foot into his chest, sending him flying. He went rolling through the snow. When he tried to get up again, I pointed my sword at him. That's enough! Ariel's exclamation ended the duel. Luke punched the ground with his broken hand, then groaned in pain and cradled his arm. Elamoy, heal him. At the princess's command, one of her attendants raced over to him. She held his broken arm so close that her enormous breast threatened to swallow it whole. and then cast healing magic. Amazing, Cliff said admiringly. He didn't know the first thing about swordplay, so he had no idea the match had been a joke. There were plenty of swordsmen and warriors out there more skilled than I was, such as Soldat and Eris. I was sure I couldn't defeat either of them without using magic and my demon eye. Luke was merely a normal swordsman. If I hadn't used my eye, we might have traded a few blows, but it was just as Ariel had said. He was no match for me. Master Luke, are you all right? I'm fine. Once I heard his calm reply, I tossed my stone sword aside. It sank through the snow. Luke stood up and looked my way. His usual superficial smile was nowhere to be seen. He looked serious. Take good care of Sylphie. Of course. He was testing to see if I was strong enough to protect Sylphie? It would help if you'd explain your reasoning. It's not terribly important, Ariel remarked. Luke just had his own feelings on the matter. Male pride, I suppose. Male pride? What, is he in love with Sylphie too? I hadn't meant to make fun of him, but Ariel furrowed her brow at my question. Crap, maybe that was a rude thing to ask? We all love Sylphie, but not in a romantic sense of the word, she said. As comrades who've been through life and death situations together, we share a powerful bond. My apologies. It was a rude thing to ask. As long as you understand. Ariel's expression regained its usual composure. She looked toward the house where Sylphie and Elenelise were still likely talking. Eventually, I will return to the Asura kingdom. There are only two paths from that point. Either I take the throne or I die. There is a significantly higher possibility that it will be the latter, and the palace will be my grave. You have to go back? If I didn't, I'd betray the memories of those who died to get me this far. It is my duty to return to Asura. Privilege came with responsibility. Despite her grim words, there was no emotion on Ariel's face. Hers was the face of someone who didn't doubt for a moment that they were doing what they must. Not that I was in a position to judge, but as far as I was concerned, that conviction made her a good candidate for the throne. Sylphie, however, has no such duty, she continued. True, Sylphie was neither a royal nor a noble, just an outsider who'd been tossed into the royal palace during the displacement incident. Sylphie saved my life. She's been there for me as my friend this whole time. Even after she found out her parents had passed, I've depended on her so much. But enough is enough. It's about time I stopped relying on her and left her to walk on her own path. Even so, Sylphie had every intention of following the princess. They'd been through so much together, I could understand why Sylphie wanted to end things, or to see things to the end. If Regerd had decided to challenge Lapis to battle, for instance, I'd probably have gone along with him, my legs trembling the whole way. Wait, that probably wasn't a good comparison, but the feeling of wanting to fight alongside your friend was the same. If Sylphie chose to follow Ariel, I would be proud of her. But if I thought it was a fight she had no chance of winning, I would want to stop her. Sylphie intends to stick with me to the end, Ariel said. But she's married now. And if the two of you try your hardest, I'm sure you'll eventually have children. When that happens, I expect her resolve to follow me will wither of its own accord. I wasn't so sure about that. When the time came, would I even be able to stop her? I didn't think so. If anything, I'd probably go with her to help. Having said that, Ariel continued, if you mistreat Sylphie, then I will take her back. I'm sure we can't defeat you with raw show of power. There are plenty of other methods, so please don't make me feel like she would be better off coming with us. I'll take those words to heart. Well then, Lord Rudius, please take good care of Sylphie. Ariel turned on her heel, her two attendants bowed to me. Luke gave me a look of acknowledgement as he picked up his sword. Then the four of them left, shuffling through the snow until they disappeared, not even waiting for Sylphie to come downstairs. As I watched them leave, I thought to myself, when that day comes, no matter what Ariel says, we're going to be there for her. When we returned to the house, Elenelise and Sylphie were just coming down the stairs. The former's eyes were swollen, but she looked like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Oh, Rudy, where's Princess Ariel? She just left. Oh, I'm sorry for not being there. Did she say anything? Just take good care of Sophie. I was still debating how best to mention the duel, but Cliff cut in front of me. Luke suddenly challenged Rudius to a duel, but leave it to Rudius. He countered Luke with a single blow. I wish I could have shown you the way that insufferable jerk cowered as he held his broken arm. You never disappoint, do you, Cliff? Totally misread the room right there, I thought dryly. Not that it mattered, but I got the feeling he didn't like Luke very much. Well, whatever. When Sylphie when Sylphie heard that, she drew her brows together. Rudy, you had a fight with Luke? No, I wouldn't really call it a fight. I was asked to duel him, and Princess Aria watched us. I see. Luke probably wanted to see for himself. See what? I asked. Your strength. Until now, Luke has been the one protecting me and the princess. I understood what she was trying to say, but I was surprised to learn his zeal ran that deep. I guess you never really knew a person's heart, huh? More importantly, my wife had just learned I'd been in a duel and she wasn't even worried about me. My opponent had used a real sword after all. But thank you, Rudy. For what? For going easy on Luke. He's weak. You'd kill him if you used your true strength. Apparently, it never even crossed her mind that I might lose. Poor Luke, though. uh, well, enough about me, I said. Are you done talking? Yeah, Sylphie nodded cheerfully. So Elenelise was Sylphie's grandmother after all. Law's mother, in other words. Elenelise had birthed half-elf children all over the world. Due to the curse of her own personality, trouble followed her everywhere. Her sorry, her conflict resolution abilities were something she'd only mastered in recent decades. Prior to that, she'd often left storms of scandals in her wake, some of which still haunted her. Her reputation was particularly bad among other elves, who routinely ostracized her children just for the crime of being related to her. Many of her children and grandchildren disparaged her, trying to distance themselves from her. Alinali stopped revealing her true name to any children she went on to have. She would raise them to adulthood, then cut ties with them. That's how she'd been living until now. Alinalise had known with just one look that Sylphie was either her grandchild or great grandchild. She hadn't intended to reveal as much to her, but when she saw Sylphie looking so happy about her marriage, she was overwhelmed with emotion. It was an emotional story. I got teary eyed myself during the recounting of it, but Alinalise refused all attempts to comfort her, claiming this was the result of her own actions. Once that conversation was over, Cliff called me to the corner of the room. Rudius? He said. Yes, Master Cliff? Stop with the master crap, and no more stiff speech. Please call me Cliff from now on. No, scratch that. Please, just do it. So there was no need to be respectful. Yet he was ordering me around like an authority figure. Ah, well, I'd give him a break this time. It's about Lise, he continued. Okay. Honestly, she's not the person I thought she was. Huh. And? I'd understand if he felt disillusioned. After all, the people he'd loved all this time actually had not only children, but the person he loved all this time actually not only had children but grandchildren as well. Judging by her conversation, there was a possibility she even had great grandchildren. Even I'd be considerably shocked. However, if she was going to say help me break up with her, or if he was going to say help me break up with her after hearing that conversation, even I'd be pissed. It wasn't like Elenalise had deceived him. Cliff had misunderstood her and fallen in love with her of his own accord. People in similar situations often felt disenchanted after hearing the truth, but it still disgusted me. Granted, I wasn't going to stop him. Elenalise was better off cutting a creep like that out completely and then living with us. Then, if Sylphie permitted it, we could. Oh, God, seriously? We could have our own little pseudo family. Wait, no, I couldn't be with anyone other than Sylphie. Well, hold on. You could say we were doing this for Sylphie's sake. Rudy, seriously! I don't get this. I don't get if this is a Japanese thing or like I get that there's a difference between being a horn dog and There are just some lines that, man, why? Why? Anyway, she's even more tragic than I thought. I'm going to have to get rid of her curse no matter what it takes. Since I'm a genius. Oh, okay. I was reading the next day. Okay. She's even more tragic than I thought. I'm going to have to get rid of her curse no matter what it takes. Since I'm a genius, I'm sure I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to do that eventually. But just to be certain, would you mind helping me out? Which one of us was the horrible piece of crap now? Me. Sorry, Cliff. So you don't feel disillusioned after hearing what she said? Disillusioned? Of course not. Why would you even say that? He replied without an ounce of hesitation. Uh, but, but the woman you love has slept with a bunch of other people, and not only does she have kids, she even has grandkids, you know? And what of it? I'm a follower of Millis. No matter what her circumstances are or how far she is from my picture perfect ideal, she loves me, and I have a duty to make her happy. He said it. I trembled. Oh crap. Maybe I really had underestimated him. I should probably call him Lord Cliff from now on. Well, maybe it wasn't necessary to go that far. I'd just call him Master Cliff like I always did. Okay, I understand. I am happy to be of assistance with whatever I can. Yeah, it'll be good to know I have your support. He gripped my small hand firmly in his when I reached out for a handshake. Also, stop being so formal. We're friends, aren't we? I refuse. I was filled with a deep sense of respect towards Cliff. Meager as my help might be, I was happy to lend it to him. Cliff and Alenalius were the last to go home. Now it was just Sylphie and me. The two of us began cleaning up the messy room our guest had left behind. Well, I said messy, but our guest had mostly been well bred. So all we had to do was wipe down the floor where they'd spilled alcohol on it. We had quite a bit of food left over, but it was probably better than having prepared too little. We'd be eating leftovers again for dinner. By the time we finished cleaning, the sun had set and the sky had grown dark. I lit up the place and returned to the living area. When I took my spot on the three-seater couch, Sylphie plopped down beside me. I was suddenly exhausted from the day's events. A lot happened, but I'm glad it went well, Sylphie said with a smile, resting her head on my shoulder. Yeah. When I wrapped my arm around her shoulder, she leaned all her weight against me. I buried my face in her hair and took a deep breath, drawing in her smell. Mm, such a sweet scent. Rudy, that tickles. But she didn't rebuff me. I kept on sniffing. I'm thinking about growing my hair out, she suddenly declared. I'd suggested that she do that many times long ago, only to be refused each time. I always thought twin tails or a ponytail would suit her, but I never thought I'd get to see it. Are you certain that's what you wish to do? Why are you being so formal? Because it's a serious conversation. Um, it's not really that serious. I'm just, my hair isn't green anymore, right? Princess Ariel told me to be more feminine, but I still plan to wear pants at school, so I thought maybe I should at least let my hair grow out. So that was it. She didn't feel self conscious about her hair anymore. Curious, I asked, "You're not going to wear that girl's uniform?" No way. I couldn't look, it wouldn't look good on me. Come on. I totally would. Or it totally would. Sorry. Come on. It totally would. I thought. She's got to see it to believe it, then I'll just buy her one when I get the chance. That aside, well, I'd like to see how you look with long hair. No doubt you'd be cute, though you were already cute right now. Thank you. Okay, then, I'll grow it out. That meant I would soon have to say farewell to the short haired Sylphie. I needed to burn this image of her into my mind while I still could, although I guess I'd be able to see her like this again if she cut her hair. Rudy, I'm going to work hard so your love for me stays strong. Why'd she have to say it like that? Now I felt teary eyed. How did I get to be so loved? I'd have to work hard too, so her feelings for me would never fade. Apparently, the smug asshole type wasn't quite what she had in mind, so I'd quit being thick headed and aim for being clever instead. I wasn't sure if I could actually do it, but I had to try at least. Sylphie, thanks for all the work you did today. Thank you too, Rudy. Since we were both exhausted, I decided we'd just hit the bath and then relax. That was how Sylphie and I got married. Bam! There we go. Finish chapter 7. I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll. So we get chapter 8, Life with a House. That's what's coming up next. I'm going to drink some water. Please tally up the amount of stuff I have to do as far as exercise. 20 crunches, 10 push ups, 10 squats, 10 jumping jacks, 10 Russian twists. All right, today, instead of twists, I'm going to do toe touches. They work the obliques just fine. All right, first off, jumping jacks. And my belly hangs out when I do that. Okay, 10 of that. Okay, 20 crunches and then everything else. 10. Gotcha. Go touch it. Oh. Okay. And lastly, push up. Alrighty. Woo. Once again, at the end of each chapter, I will do the exercises that were requested, but don't wait until the end of the chapter or they won't count for that period. Redeem them during the chapter that I'm reading. Thank you. All right. All right, everybody. Let's have a water break. Water. Just trying to get my breathing under control before I start back up. Whoo boy. Always good. Uh, All right. Chapter 8, Life with a House. 2 months had passed since Sophie and I got married. The university entered a new semester. I became a second year student, and my daily life underwent a dramatic change. Wow, where did my breathing that I thought I'd reestablish go? Hang on one second. Okay, so that's on page 128. By the way, there's only 205. Okay, so I'm going from 119 to 128, so not even that long. Okay. All right. First, I moved out of the dorm and began commuting from home. I woke up every morning in a big bed beside my own house, or inside my own house. If Sylvie was beside me, we shared a good morning kiss. Her mornings began early, so she woke about the same time as I did for my training. Do I need glasses for breathing? What? Why would it? How's this gonna fix my breathing? How's this gonna fix my breathing? I'm on 119. I'm going to 128. And I was talking about my breathing, and they're like, "Do you need glasses?" I'm like, "What?" Oh boy. Yeah, I need to. I mean, I have glasses. Sometimes glasses fix the can't read problem. That has nothing to do with it. Has nothing to do with it. And I'm reading just fine. Thanks a lot, Spider. It's a breathing issue, not a reading issue, a breathing issue. It's my lungs. It has nothing, not my eyes. Wait, am I supposed to? Yeah. Clearly, you have hearing issues. Yes, indeed. See, I can put on the glasses, but it doesn't do that much. I need to get like some cleaner for my glasses. I need to get glasses cleaner because I don't. I'm dumb and I don't have any. Anyway, shoot, I need to. Okay, I need to order a lab coat later for the Patreon thing, and that's all I can say. All right, when the new year's coming. All right, so once I was up, I'd start my routine by running a circuit around the inside of the city. Then practice swinging the stone sword I'd conjured during my duel with Luke. As usual, I was unable to wrap a battle aura around my body, but that didn't mean practicing was pointless. For some reason, Batty Gaddy often popped in during my practice, bellowing about how out the obnoxious laugh that was so loud it annoyed the entire neighborhood. I greeted him politely nonetheless, and he sometimes acted as my sparring partner. Skill wise, he didn't match up to the likes of Regerd or Ghislaine, but in fact, he was weaker than Eris, actually. No, it wasn't that he didn't measure up, just that I got the sense he wasn't using his full strength. Since he had an immortal body, maybe he just didn't feel the defense was necessary. On the other hand, he'd offer me surprisingly useful advice every so often, so maybe he really was quite strong. After training, we'd make tracks for my house, where Sylphie would greet us with breakfast. Batty Gaddy would disappear as soon as he ate his portion. The man was truly a mystery to me. I wondered what he was thinking. Some days it didn't seem like he was thinking at all. On days when Batty Gaddy wasn't there, Sylphie and I would lovingly feed each other. When breakfast was over, we would head to the university, which was about a 30-minute walk away. Zenobia remarked that it was a bit inconvenient, but it didn't feel that far to me. I could cover the ground pretty quickly if I ran. We would arrive well before class started. Sylphie and I would part ways just before the dormitories, and I'd kill some time here and there before going to check in on Zenobia and Cliff. Cliff had his nose to the grindstone researching curses every morning. He'd claimed a research lab and spent his time in there disassembling magic items, digging through books, and searching for patterns. Eventually, he began to work on original magic, on an original magical instrument of his own design. I know you mentioned transferring a curse, but I can't think of any way you'd go about that, he told me. But if my own theory is correct, I should be able to design a magical instrument that can negate curses. His theory was that magical items and curses function much the same. A curse placed on an object produced a magic item, whereas a curse on a person produced a cursed child. In other words, if you could do something about the effects of a magic item, then you could do something about a curse. The fact that he was stuck using language as ambiguous as something was proof his research was still in the beginning stages. I have nothing which requires your help right now. This is my research, so please let me handle it. This is a matter of pride for me. He sounded like a child who thought I might be there to nab his toys. It'd be one thing if Nanahoshi were the one offering to help him, but I didn't really think there was much I could do to assist. Afternoons brought with them a high likelihood that Linnaeus and Cliff would be all over each other, so I refrained from visiting him during that period. Zenoba often spent his entire day in his own research room. Generally, he'd be trying to decipher the writing we discovered in the manor, or affectionately rubbing his cheek against that of the automated dolls. He'd made no progress so far, but that was to be expected. His passion was undeniable. I was certain he'd eventually crack the case. Master, please watch Julie. I'll take care of this. Apparently, he was terrified that I'd stick my nose in his research. He spoke as if I'd solved the puzzle in a single glance and bring his quest to an end. People were really overestimating my abilities. I didn't know anything outside of my area of expertise. On a related note, Zenoba was continuing to make gradual progress in the red worm figurine during his breaks from research. Julie sat nearby, making a figurine herself. I'd given her her own desk to work at, and she'd been practicing diligently. Grandmaster, thank you for your instruction. Now that I couldn't teach her at night, I was teaching her earth magic in the mornings instead. We were coming up on a year since we'd found her, and her growth was startling, but it was still too soon for us to put our mass production plans into practice. For now, all I could do was have her focus on practice through steady repetition. According to Sylphie, if a child continued practicing the same school of magic while they were young, it would increase their proficiency with it. Therefore, I had her focus on using only earth magic. If Sylphie's theory was correct, then Julie would soon be an expert in earth magic. We could move on to the next phase once she'd progressed some more. There was no need to rush. I still went to the cafeteria for lunch for various reasons. For various reasons, I decided to not bring food from home. The seats in the corner of the first floor were our exclusive use, our being Zenoba, Julie, occasionally Batty Gaddy or Cliff, and Elena Lise, as well as Linny and Priscilla. These days, Luke and Sylphie showed up almost daily. They didn't eat with us, but they would exchange a few words before taking their leave. According to them, it was to give the appearance that Ariel and I were friends. I didn't chat with Luke, but I was getting more lovey dovey with Master Fitz, who was beginning to look more feminine as her hair grew longer. Some people still thought she was a man and regarded us with strange looks when they saw us being affectionate. Sylphie still didn't like public displays of affection when she was at her in her Fitz persona. She got really upset when I touched her butt one time. She didn't get angry or glare at me, she just looked sad. She told me she wanted me to refrain from being a creep in front of people. I can understand that. That was fair, I suppose. Sylphie wasn't the type to worry about public attention, but she probably didn't want people to think her husband was some kind of sex crazed baboon who couldn't keep it in his pants. I'd have to behave myself for her sake. After lunch, I'd always head to class. As usual, I was taking advanced tier healing and intermediate tier detoxification classes. I'd sit beside Priscilla and we'd focus entirely on memorizing information, casting healing on each other, and eating meat. On days when I didn't have class, I would teach Linnea offensive magic. You haven't been touching us lately, Mew. You still stink of arousal, but I can't get over how weird it feels that you don't try to touch us. The two of them couldn't hide their surprise at my good behavior, but I had pledged my fidelity to Sylphie and I wasn't going to touch other girls. Priscilla would tease me with flirting giggles, but I just ignored her. Linnea would sometimes flash her underwear at me, but I tried to avert my eyes. Unfortunately, I couldn't beat my deeply ingrained instincts, so I knew she was wearing blue today. As the afternoon came to an end, I would pay Nanahoshi a visit. She was as crabby as ever. Now that my libido had returned, I could appreciate the petite Japanese build and features that made her stand out amidst the people of this world. My preferences must have changed since my last life, since I didn't find her gloomy aura that appealing. It did, however, fill me with a sense of nostalgia. Just so you know, if you lay a hand on me, I'll go crying to Orsted. Uh, please don't do that. She'd say things like that if I stared too much. She knew how terrified I was of Orsted. I had no intention of touching her anyway, so the exchange was basically reaffirmation that we were maintaining our distance. Nanahoshi always gave off an aura of irritation and impatience. However, we'd burned through her stock of untested magic circles in the past 6 months. It seemed it was about time for her to move on to the next stage. Once I finished with Nanahoshi, I'd meet back up with Sylphie. Her bodyguard duties continued on the same schedule as before, but since we were newly married, the princess let her go home after a while once class ended. She still did have to guard the princess at night, so after eating dinner, doing a bit of cleaning, and taking a bath, she'd immediately head back to the school. It seemed like twice the effort. I was putting her through a lot. Sylphie, however, didn't seem to feel that way. I like having a house to come back to, or so she said. Sylphie was on night guard duty 2 days out of 3. That meant she only had 1 day to rest, which was quite a bit considering that she'd had no days off up until then. The fact that she even got the 1 day off now was all thanks to Elinalise, who'd personally volunteered to guard the princess instead. I'd never seen them talk, but apparently they got along quite well. The two of them seemed like oil and water, what with Elinalise's promiscuity and Ariel's circumspect nature. But according to Sylphie, Ariel wasn't all that pure after all. She was just putting on a show. On the days Sylphie didn't have night duty, she and I would stop by the market on our way home and buy 3 days worth of worth of groceries. Most of the food for sale were, uh, most of the food for sale were things with a long shelf life, such as beans, potatoes, and dried meat. I craved rice. If we expanded the distribution routes that Nanahoshi had developed, perhaps we could import rice from the south. An issue for later, at any rate. Once we got home, it was dinner time. Contrary to her tomboyish appearance, Sylvie was a good cook. She didn't know all that many recipes, but her cooking reminded me of my childhood. It tastes like the food I'd eaten growing up in Buena Village, which made sense given that Lilia was the one who taught her. She looked so cute with her apron on, bustling about the kitchen. It made me want to take her in my arms from behind. I once tried to help her cook, but she politely turned me down. Apparently, there was something about making food that she didn't want to share with anyone else, even though it wasn't like she was a chef or anything. I thought about suggesting that she wear nothing but an apron, but had the feeling she'd turn me down. We occasionally had guests when dinner time rolled around, and by guests, I meant the 13 we'd previously invited. Cliff and Elenius came over relatively often. Zenoba, perhaps showing restraint, rarely ever showed up. Nanahoshi came over about once a month to use our bath. She probably wanted to visit more frequently, but refrained from doing so. Before any of you get the wrong idea, just let me say it right now. I did not peek on her while she was bathing. Nanahoshi seemed to be on her guard about the possibility anyway. She only came over, she only ever came over when Sylvie was home. Once dinner was finished and our guests had gone home, we were left to ourselves for some sweet, sweet alone time. As Master Fitz, Sylvie behaved with dignity throughout the day and expected me to exhibit similar restraint and and propriety, even though just seeing her from afar made me want to run up to her like an excited puppy. By contrast, she was loving and submissive at night. She'd do whatever I asked, even when I let myself slip and said something filthy. She'd gladly fulfill my request. Compared to the people in the Asura Palace, you're completely normal, she told me. Sylphie never asked anything of me. In fact, she was taking a bat to my calm, rational side when she said, I want to do whatever you want to do, Rudy. I'd given in to the temptation several times and done just that, but I couldn't keep treating her like an object. Sure, I loved sex. This was everything I'd ever dreamed about. Still, Sophie was my wife. Respect. That's right. I wanted to respect her. Or so I thought, but when she looked at me with those shimmering eyes and said, You don't have to restrain yourself, it felt so stupid to even try. I was a weak man. There were words I wanted to try saying at least once in my life or have said to me. There were things I wanted to try doing at least once in my life or have done to me. In the past 2 months, I'd managed to strike half of those off my list. I didn't pressure Sylphie into anything, though. Anything she wasn't keen on, we didn't do. Even so, I wanted to do something for her. With that thought in mind, I asked, Hey, Sylphie, is there anything you want me to do for you? Huh? Okay, well, do you remember what you promised before? As soon as I heard that, I prostrated myself. I'm sorry, I don't remember. Flustered, Sylphie forced me to look up. It's not your fault. It was a year ago. Remember the thing you used, disturb magic? I want you to teach me. That's no trouble at all. I'll teach you every last detail. Well, I know advanced tier healing magic, Rudy. You're taking classes on that, right? I can teach you too. So we spent our time after dinner teaching each other magic. I would teach Sylphie how to use disturb magic, and she would teach me how to use healing magic without incantations. There was no real purpose to the latter, but she wasn't satisfied with just me doing the teaching. I wondered why that was. Was she the type who weren't happy if they weren't providing their partner with something? Or the type that felt uncomfortable receiving anything from other people? Hmm. It was true that I couldn't cast healing magic without incantations anyway, so I gradually accepted her instruction. I could keep an eye out for anything else I wanted to learn from her in the meantime. Um, I don't think it's all that different from casting other types of magic without an incantation, Sylphie said at one point. I used to think so too, and yet the fact remained that I couldn't use healing magic without an incantation, not even after listening to Sylphie explain how it worked and trying to put her instructions into practice. Rudy, is it possible you don't understand what it feels like to be on the receiving end of a spell? Healing magic entailed touching another person's body and pouring your own mana into them. Something, uh, oh, hang on. Oh, using your mana to alter the flow of their mana and heal their wounds. I was unable to conjure the feeling of having someone else's mana interfere with mine. Put more simply, it was like pressing your right index finger against your left palm, but only the finger felt anything. No? I mean, I feel the pressure. I don't have the sensation of touch. That's the sensation of touch is in your fingers, but I do feel that there is I do feel the pressure and I do feel the sensation that my palm is being touched. I I'm not sure I can follow that kind of logic. Oh well. Offensive magic was as easy as breathing to me. This was odd. Maybe it wasn't just healing magic that I couldn't cast without an incantation, but all kinds of support magic? Maybe, like with battle auras, it was just something that people who'd been reincarnated here from the other world couldn't master. Or maybe I just didn't have the knack for healing magic. I'm kind of relieved, you know? There are actually things you can't do, Sophie said with her characteristic toothy grin. Being outshone by someone at anything was a bit vexing, but it had to have but it had to have been discouraging for Sylphie to think that there was nothing she could beat me at, so I didn't let it bother me. Unlike my futile attempts at healing magic, Sylphie mastered the essentials of disturbed magic in no time. She still needed practice, but I was sure she'd be able to use it in battle eventually. Sylphie really was an exceptional student. I'd taught magic to a number of people Eris, Ghislaine, Zenoba, Julie, Linnea, but I felt like Sylphie was the quickest among them to learn. She might even be a kind of genius herself. This is kind of unfair, isn't it? A magician can't do anything if you do this. Well, one of the seven great powers used a similar technique. Really? So that's where it came from? You're acquainted with one of the seven great powers then? No, I'm not. Nanahoshi is. Sylphie would probably worry if I told her one of them had nearly killed me. It was probably safer to keep my any mention of Orsted to myself too. There was no guarantee he wouldn't come at me for teaching people how to use the disturbed magic. How to use disturbed magic. Wow. Ha! When you read too fast and your mouth can't keep up. You probably shouldn't share this information with anyone else. That goes for disturbed magic as well. If one of the seven great powers came after us, I wouldn't be any match for them. Got it. It's a secret, Sylphie said, nodding earnestly. On days when Sylphie was on night duty, I made a concerted effort to do the cleaning and laundry. In general, washing Sylphie's clothes was my job, including her panties and bras. Of course, as her husband, I refrained from any acts of perversion. I didn't pocket them or take them to my room to use them to pleasure myself. I took a sniff at most. Sylphie satisfied my young, active libido once every 3 days. I also cleaned the house more or less, though I did a sloppy job of it, according to Sylphie. Back when I was an adventurer, I would clean every inn I moved into for the first time. But other than that, I was the messy type. Sylphie would clean on her days off, but this manor was too huge for the two of us to keep spotless. I did think cleaning was a necessity, but the house was just way too big. Maybe we needed to hire a maid. Thinking about a maid reminded me of Lilia, and I wondered if Paul and the others had already reunited with Zenith. It had been 3 years since Elinelise and her comrades had located my mother. I estimated it would have taken Roxy and Tallhand a year or two to cut across the demon continent and arrive in Milichion. If memory served me right, they would have departed for the Begarit continent's labyrinth city of Rapan, and I didn't think that would be a whole year's journey. Uh, I'd sent my first letter a year and a half ago. If it arrived as planned, then I should be getting a reply soon. I should be more patient. Alinalise had assured me that there was nothing to worry about, but I still felt anxious. Roxy was on the case, and I trusted her. I should keep calm and wait. Now that I thought about it, with Buena Village gone, Paul and the others had nowhere to live. Maybe they'd decide to settle down in Milichion, but if they headed this way, we could live together in this house. Now that I thought about it, you could say that me getting married and buying a house was for the sake of my family. Of course, that was something I only thought about after the fact, so it was nothing more than a convenient excuse. In any case, to think that a former shut in like me might be looking after my parents, it was, it was kind of moving, though it would be difficult to give up privacy of my two-person love nest with Sylphie. And there we are. We've made it to chapter 9. Wow, it's just a little after 5. We've been doing this for like about an hour, and we're already 2 chapters in. Look at that. Well, I mean, it did not help that chapter 8 was so freaking short. Chapter 7 felt really long, and then chapter 8 felt really short. So 128, and then I'm going to look for where 10 is. Okay, 10 is 139. So this is 11 pages this time around. All right, so that's much better. That's at least a little better. Okay, 10 crunches, 10 push ups, squats, no jumping jacks, 10 Russian twists. Okay, so no jumping. To be fair, jumping jacks are what tire me out and make me winded the most. 10 squats. Okay, so now we have 10 toe touches, push ups, and crunches. the push-ups. Yeah, quick reminder, do not redeem exercises when I'm actually going to exercise because they will not count. So, San Marino, you may have missed it. So I'm just putting it out there. When you redeemed it, I had already done the tally and we'd done the exercises. So that will go towards the exercises that I owe at the end of chapter 9. Just I did set that rule this stream. In the previous ones, if you did it while I was in between chapters, I would add that to what I was currently doing. But now it moves to that because I'd rather you guys actually redeem them while I'm reading. That way I don't have to wait on people to redeem them in between chapters. It just makes things go a little bit quicker, especially considering that there's a lot to read and to go through. It just makes things a bit easier. Uh, Also, for those of you that missed it yesterday, I showed it off a bit. I don't know if I was on stream when I showed it. I may not have been. I made vegetable soup, homemade vegetable soup. Uh, Pretty easy. I mean, you can use all the different veggies you like, and it's also in an Instapot. Um, I'm cooking it in an Instapot, which is pretty quick and easy for me to do. But essentially, what it does is I pour some oil into the Instapot, put it on saute, and then the first thing that goes in are the diced onions. So I take all my diced onions and I put them in and let them saute until they get nice and soft, and then I'll turn off the heat and then add tomato paste and minced garlic, and then I'll let that cook for a bit, like a minute or two. And then after that, that's when you pour in your stock. Now, if you want to make it all veggie, you can pour in veggie stock or vegetable broth. We're pouring in chicken broth, so because we think it gives it a nice flavor. Pour in chicken broth, and then from there we add the rest of our vegetables. So in my case, it is sliced carrot. Like we'll peel some carrots and I'll slice up carrot and put the sliced carrots in. Same with celery. I'll slice some celery up, throw it in there. Get some small russet potatoes, cut them to fourths, put them in. I also added bell pepper. That is also a thing that I added in. This time, just a nice green bell pepper or uh, I forget what they're called in other countries. Cap something. I Here in the U.S. we call them bell peppers. Uh, uh, see what else did I add? I got the potatoes. Canned green beans, canned spinach, and canned corn. I just open the cans and then drain the liquid and then put the vegetables straight in. So I've been using French style green beans, but I guess you could probably use whatever green beans you want. Uh, and then just regular old corn and shredded spinach. I guess if you wanted to do proper spinach like baby leaf spinach, you could just get a thing of baby leaf spinach and just dump that all in there. Stir it up nice. Oh yeah, I should have mentioned that when you do the tomato paste and the garlic, when you add that, that's when you're supposed to add your seasonings too. So you would add your bay leaf and Italian seasoning to it. So in the beginning, and then you start adding the broth, and that's when you throw all your vegetables in, and then you just close it in and you set it on high for 2 minutes. Let the pressure kick in, and then let it cook for 2 minutes, and then just let it depressurize on its own. And by the time you're done, you've got nice, warm, hearty vegetable soup. Now, if that is all you want, you're welcome to that. I like the vegetable soup as well sometimes, but there's also other ways that I do things. This is a second dish that we make here using the pressure cooker. We'll take boneless, skinless chicken breast and usually a big container about this tall, just a little plastic jug of there we go, of salsa. And what I'll do is I'll pour half of the salsa into the pressure cooker. And then I'll put all the chicken in there, the boneless, skinless chicken breast. I'll put them in there and cover it all with the other half of the salsa jug. I'll close it up. I'll set it to the poultry setting and just let it cook. And then when it gets done with its depressurization, let it just do naturally. I'll take the chicken out with some tongs, put them on a plate, set that plate in the refrigerator for a few minutes to get it where it will cool. That way, it's not too hot to pull apart with your hands. And then I'll pull it apart to shred it with my hands, so it's like nicely shredded into the little fine pieces. Put all that back in the salsa, stir it up so it's nice and covered up there, and now just pour that into a container. And so what I've done is, what I'll do is I'll get like a ladle full of the vegetable soup, and then I'll get a couple of tonguefuls of the chicken, and I'll mix that together, and I'll throw that in the microwave and uh, heat that up. By the way, this stuff that I'm talking about, it's a lot. Like this should be like several days worth of food for you, depending on your household. But this is easily like a lot of servings. This is we're you could say that typically when we do cook it, it's like a week's worth of food. You know. Anyway, so I will heat that up, and if I want, I will also add like some shredded cheese to it. Like we have some sharp cheddar shredded cheese. I'll add that in, and then I'll throw it back in the microwave to kind of melt the cheese a little bit, and I'll get some. I'll crack some sea salt and some pepper into it, mix it up nicely, and that's what I had for lunch. Yeah, like the cooking, it sounds like a lot of work, but it's honestly it's probably ADHD cooking. The majority of like the chicken and salsa is like the easiest thing in the world to do. Like I'm not even joking. It's the easiest thing. And the prep for the the meal prep for the um vegetable soup is the longest thing, which is just getting your mise en place ready. And that's mise en place is literally just your your prep work, having everything cut and everything ready to go, so that like as soon as you get started, you're like, okay, this wait, you're on your next step, and then now you're ready. So like as soon as it's ready, you're not overcooking anything because you're ready to do it like pretty quickly. I would say prep time for there's no prep time for the chicken salsa. It's literally dump half, put your chicken in, dump the other half, close the thing, set it, walk away. It is literally ADHD cooking. And it's okay if you forget about it because of your dumb ADHD brain like I have. You can come back to it. It's fine. It's already depressurized. And then you just pull the chicken out, put it on the plate, let it go in the fridge for about 5 minutes, come back, tear it up, throw it in there, empty out the plant. Like the thing that's going to take the longest is just cleaning out the pot. um, but yeah, getting your mise en place set up for your vegetable soup really really easy. Uh, it takes a little bit of time because you're cutting up onions, you're peeling whole carrots and dicing them, and you're cutting celery. You know, uh, honestly, I only used about well, with the exception of the canned stuff, I only used I used the whole onion, but I only used half of the celery, and I only used like 4 or 5 of the carrots, and I didn't even use half of the potatoes. So all we'd have to do is get more of the canned ingredients and another onion. We can make another one, but I mean, we've still got a big bowl of it. And when I say bowl, I mean like this big, this deep, you know. It's not small. We've got plenty still. So we probably won't need one until next week. I think we're still pretty good. And if I need to, I think the only thing that I'm technically missing. No, we've got everything we need for garlic noodles. Yeah. If you never had garlic noodles, pretty simple. Um, you just start getting your boiling water ready for your spaghetti because you're going to be making half a pack of spaghetti noodles because it's only 8 ounces that you really need, and they only sell them in 16 ounces that I know of in the U.S. So it's half a pack of noodles. Then what you're going to do is like in a bowl, you're going to get sesame oil, soy sauce, brown sugar, and oyster sauce mixed together, and go looking go looking it up. There's a easy recipe for garlic noodles. Again, I googled this. It's really simple stuff. Just so I had the measurements for it, and you mix that all together, right? And you're gonna let that chill, and you chop up some green onion. You just chop up some green onion, and that's basically that, and mincing 4 cloves of garlic, and that's basically all you got to do. You just kind of do that on a separate. You want to get a skillet down. It's one pot, one skillet. That's it. That's all there is to it. And so what you're going to do is you'll mix all that stuff together in the bowl, waiting on the water to boil. When the water's at a boil, put your noodles in there. When that skillet is, it probably somewhere around 4 or 5, like medium low, medium to medium low. Like it, you don't have to turn it up very high. You want to take 4 tablespoons or half a stick of butter, throw that on the skillet, let it nice and melt in there, then throw in your garlic and like some of your green onions. The rest of your green onions you want to use later for garnish. And you want to let that kind of melt in there and kind of like cook that up a little bit. And while that's going on, your noodles should be about ready. So, of course, you go and grab a noodle out. Don't do it barehanded. Don't put your hand in boiling water. That's just stupid. But yeah, you get a noodle, you do a test, you throw it against the wall. If it sticks, they're done. Uh, it's weird, but yeah, that's how it works. And then you just strain your noodles. Just drain and strain your noodles. And then what you do is about that time, that's when you take your mixture, add it to the skillet, get that out of the bowl, stir that around a bit, throw your noodles in there, and then stir your noodles around so that your noodles get coated in that butter and garlic and your soy sauce, oyster sauce, uh, uh, sesame oil, and brown sugar concoction that you've made there. I think it's like 3 or 4 different types of things. I know it was soy. Yeah, I think it's the 4 different like oily type things, oils and sauces, and then it's the brown sugar. So I think there may be one more that I'm not remembering right now, but I know there was sesame oil, oyster sauce, and soy sauce. Oh, hey, okay. So there's only 2 things that you need. You need 1 teaspoon and 1 tablespoon for your measuring, because you're gonna get 2 tablespoons of 2 things, and then 2 teaspoons or 1 teaspoon of 2 things, and that's how the mixture is. And you just mix that all together. Anyway, you put your noodles in that. Make sure they get nice and coated. Throw your uh, garnish of spring onions on top. Grab some of that. Put it on a small or a big plate, and that's garlic noodles. It's prep time is probably like 4 minutes, if that, and cook time is like maybe 10. It's a really quick, easy thing to make. Uh, and the funny part is because you're using the skillet, like your big size skillet, to kind of in the final process. Literally, you can just leave the skillet, put a put it on a little pad, and then put the skillet with the noodles in the fridge. And if it's just you, you don't need a plate. Just eat however much you want from the skillet, and then put the rest away for later. It's pretty cool. It's quick and easy stuff, and it's not bad. Now, if you're worried about like your health and your weight and all that, I would say olive oil probably better for you. As far as like the oils go, you want to look at stuff. Vegetable oils, a lot of stuff that's made with vegetable oil, not exactly good for you. You want to be olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil. Those are good oils. The most common of which, of course, is olive oil. All right. I didn't mean to turn this into kind of a cooking segment, but yeah, I Googled all this stuff. So I will say that a pressure cooker or an Instapot, as they're called here, I would say it's absolutely worth it. It is 100%. Uh, that between that and the air fryer, those are the two best things we have here. Uh, Canola is not good. Canola is not good for you either. Not a That's not a good oil saying. But thank you for bringing it up. Uh, Once again, and I'm not trying to plug or shill for anybody, but there was a lot of good information that was in this. If you go and look this up, I believe you can also find it on Kindle. Deep Nutrition. This will help you with a lot of that stuff, and it'll talk about good oils, good fats, bad fats. So you want to, your sugars you definitely want to cut down on. Your omega 6 fatty acids and stuff like that. Beyond calories, sleep reduces getting a hearty amount of sleep. That's important. I don't get that, so that's on me. But yeah, what you eat, what you put in your body is a lot more important than just your exercise. I mean, exercise is very important too, but diet is uh, three-quarters of the reason why you are in the shape that you are. You know, now when you're young and you've got a higher metabolism, I got to tell you, I was pretty much I I did not start putting on pounds like this. I didn't have like fat or a puffed out belly until I was 32. I could eat like a fat kid and not gain an ounce back in the day. So, yeah, metabolism does go away eventually. So, you know. All right, let's get back to the book because I've been going on. All right, chapter 9, The Letter. When I woke in the morning, Sylvie was asleep. Sylvie was sleeping on my arm. Sorry, Spider, but it's helpful and good info. Meh. Also, you're not the only person listening. This might have been helpful for someone. Meh. Uh, Instapot or a 10 in 1 is literally you can steam vegetables, you can pressure cook stuff. It is also a rice cooker. Uh, you can saute stuff in it. Like it's got so many uses. Yeah, dude. Uh, you can Dude, there's so many things that I think you can make a cake in it. I'm not 100%. There's a lot of different recipes that you can do with a Instapot. I would highly suggest you guys googling that and seeing it's a really good investment. Anyway, when I woke up in the morning, Sylvie was sleeping on my arm. I took in her white hair, the pale nape of her neck, her long lashes. Such an unbelievably cute girl was lying in bed in nothing but her panties and using my arm as a pillow. Her face, as she slept, looked so completely relaxed and vulnerable. When I folded back the blanket, her sakura petals came into view. There were there were little bruises on her skin just above them. In other words, hickeys. Ones I'd put on her last night. In my previous life, I hadn't understood the appeal of hickeys, but on someone, but I loved waking up and seeing the ones I'd left on Sylphie. It was something similar to what those terrible boyfriends who made their girlfriends get a piercing or tattoo must have felt, if not as vile. A sense of pride. Sylphie was mine. I wasn't going to let anyone else have her. At that thought, my little man stood up for morning roll call. He sure was full of pep considering how hard we'd gone at it yesterday. In my previous life, the only attention he'd gotten was from my hand, and he'd been a shut-in himself these last couple of years.
Sounds
Now that he
like
had a place to
someone
stretch his
could
legs.
benefit from some of
Lord of
Nyanta's
memes, thank you for the
news.
follow. Can we get some nyantas in the chat? All right. Now that he had a place to stretch his legs, he was truly bursting with energy. Ah, crap. I can't start getting excited this early in the morning. Sophia has work today. I would just have to divert that energy into exercise instead. So I extracted my arm from beneath Sylphie's head and replaced it with a pillow. Mm, Rudy, you're not supposed to drink from that. Sylphie stirred, curling up in a ball. Her sleep talking was cute. I wondered what she was letting me drink from in her dreams. Somehow I found myself stroking her chest. I'd wake her if I wasn't careful, so I did so very gently, like touching silken tofu, very discreet. I had to be the happiest man in the world, getting to experience something this wonderful every morning. Was this what it felt like to be really, truly happy in real life? Rudy? Sylphie opened her eyes and looked at me. Then she grabbed my hand and, still half asleep, smiled and said, "Be safe. Will do." Then I left the room. It would be another 3 days before we could sleep together again. I would wait anxiously for it. Life had been genuinely peaceful lately. The only event of note was Lenny and Persenna introducing me to some boy. Apparently, he was a first year delinquent who, in the span of 2 months, had fought and defeated all the other punks in his grade. Then he got so full of himself he wanted to try challenging the boss's group, but his first target, Zenoba, utterly annihilated him. After all that, he somehow became a part of my group. It was completely out of the blue. According to the rumors I'd heard of late, the university was apparently ruled by something similar to the Four Heavenly Kings, called the Demonic Circle of Six. Rumor had it that the circle answered to me. If anyone could beat my circle of six, they earned the right to challenge me. Sounded like the setup for a shonen manga. They weren't going to call it a festival, a fist festival or something like that, were they? Incidentally, those six people were Zenoba, Cliff, Linnea, Persenna, Fitz, and Batty Gaddy. If someone did actually defeat all of them, that meant I'd be facing someone who could defeat a Demon King. No thanks. In any case, the first challenger this year had already met a miserable defeat at the hands of the first person he targeted. By the time I met him, he was already hanging his head and acting meek, like a dog with his tail between his legs. Apparently, it had been a decent fight, thanks to the boy putting distance between himself and Zenoba so he could attack at range with his magic. But Zenoba had withstood all his attacks until his opponent was drained of mana, then closed the gap and sealed his victory with a single punch. It seemed range combat wasn't Zenoba's specialty. I would have to teach him the secret Chinese technique of taking a golf shot at your opponent with a rock. In any case, I'd somehow become the boss of the school without my knowledge. At least it made the delinquents listen to me. That was especially useful when I recently found some of them beating up a student behind the main school building. I intervened verbally, though I was prepared to fight them if necessary, and they just went pale and stopped. It was nice being able to stop bullies with just a few words. Not bad at all having power like that. As long as I lived, I wouldn't allow others to harass the weak. Not even if the person being bullied was somehow to blame. Then one day, it finally arrived. A letter from Paul. Dear Rudius, I got your letter. So, you're enrolling in the University of Magic? Congratulations. I'm glad you're walking on your own path. I'm sure you've heard this from Elinelise already, but we found Zenith's location thanks to Roxy, Tallhand, and Elinelise, and our think Tallhand and Elinelise are on our way to retrieve her. Give Elinelise my regards. Of course, oh, Roxy, Tallhand, and Elinelise. Okay. I was going to say that sentence felt very confusing. But we found Zenith's location thanks to Roxy, Tallhand, and Elinelise, and are on our way to retrieve her. Give Elinelise my regards. Of course, she'll probably just look disgusted if you do. On to the real topic. We're currently in Eastport. We're about to head to the Begarit continent next. I've never been there before, but it's said to be one of the harshest places in the world after the Demon Continent. I hesitated to take the children with me. Norn and Aisha are still only 9. That's when the idea came up, and to send the two of them Uh, that's when the idea came up to send the two of them to where you are. Of course, it's not like they could just go by themselves. Ginger volunteered to accompany them, but I wasn't sure if that would be enough. Just then, I ran into someone you know. They offered to take on the task of escorting the children to you, and I agreed. I'm sure you'll be surprised when you see them. They're very reliable. Honestly, it was a painful decision. I kept thinking, what if something happens to them along the way? What if something horrible happens and I'm not there? Much as I want to be with them, I also want them to be safe. You as well. Once they get there, just find a place to live, no matter how small, and send them to school. I sent them I sent them along with enough money to cover their living and enrollment expenses. Quite a large sum. Don't go using it to buy women, okay? I'm just teasing. Knowing you, you'll do a good job, I'm sure. But yeah, I get this is something I should be doing myself. Sorry for being a terrible father. I feel bad asking you to do this, but please do me this favor. Come to think of it, you're already 15, though I guess you may be 16 or 17 by the time this letter gets to you. Either way, you're an adult. I feel bad we couldn't celebrate your birthday together. I won't be able to celebrate Norn or Aisha's 10th birthdays either. Ah, well, we can have one huge party when we all get back together as a family. Leave finding your mother to me. The Toa Search and Rescue Corps has effectively disbanded, but I have plenty of firepower on my side. Between Linnea, Tallhand, Roxy, Vera, Shira, and myself, we can make it to the Begarit continent and back. If things go smoothly, we should be able to join you in Renoa in another year or two. I did consider sending Linnea along with the children, but apparently she's more worried about me than she is about them. What a mess. I feel pathetic. Anyway, Lilia trusts Aisha. She's basically taught the girl all she could. Aisha's a genius. I'm a bit scared by the power of my own genes, honestly, considering how you and Aisha both turned out. Yeah, Lilia, not Linnea. I know. Sorry. uh, Norn, though, she's a normal kid. She's not like you and Aisha. You might get really frustrated with her, but try to be patient. I'm afraid I spoiled her, and it's made her a bit selfish. She hates you, and she doesn't get along well with Aisha, so she may feel isolated over there. As her older brother, please be kind to her. I also gave them a copy of this letter just in case. I'm sure they'll be fine considering who's looking after them, but if they don't show up within 6 months of this letter's arrival, I'd like you to go out and look for them. So that's the gist of it. I feel bad for leaving everything up to you, but thank you, Paul Greyrat. It was a letter full of guilt, honestly. It was a letter full of guilt. Honestly, Paul. I was a bit nervous about Norn and Aisha coming here, but I supposed it was better than them being dragged along to the Begarit continent. Couldn't he have left them with Xena's family? No, maybe that presented its own problems. Norn aside, Aisha wasn't related to the Zenith by blood. They'd probably be fine traveling here. Compared to the demon continent, the central continent was relatively safe. Kidnapping was so rampant in this world that it might be a concern, but the folks who did that generally targeted the vulnerable. If Norn and Aisha had two capable bodyguards around, they would probably wouldn't be an appealing target. Speaking of the bodyguards, Ginger was a knight and a former member of Zenoba's Imperial Guard. I couldn't remember how capable she was, but Sharon knights were trained in water god style, so that should prove useful for an escort mission. Hmm. Then there was the other, whom Paul called reliable. Who could it be? Geese, maybe? There's no way it could be Eris. Who else was reliable that both Paul and I knew? Ah, could it be who I was thinking of? They'd mentioned searching the central continent, but perhaps good fortune had allowed them to cross paths with Paul. If I was right, they could handle it. In fact, they wouldn't even need Ginger's help. I could tell how much Paul trusted me based off this letter. I had to make sure I lived up to his expectations. I was his oldest son, after all. I was also relieved that I'd made the right choice by marrying Sylphie and getting this house ready, particularly the latter. We had plenty of rooms. We could welcome my sisters into our home once they got here. The biggest problem I could see was that both my sisters were still young. Our love-making sessions wouldn't be very good for their education, but then again, I suppose we could just put them in rooms far from ours. I was looking forward to their arrival, actually. I wondered how soon it would be. 2 months from now, perhaps? Wait, there was something I had to do before that. This is exactly the kind of thing I need to consult Sylvie about first. Hmm. I went looking for her. Right about now, she would be in the kitchen preparing breakfast. When I ventured in, I found her chopping vegetables. There was a rhythmic thunk each time the blade came down on the cutting board. She was so short, with tiny shoulders and a thin frame. Seeing her from this angle just heated me up. Sylphie! I threw my arms around her from behind, then I slipped my hands in through the sleeves of her apron and groped her soft breast. Ouch! Oh, no. When I looked, Sylphie had cut her finger. Crimson swelled from the wound and splattered across the top of her cutting board. She sliced herself open the moment I hugged her. Yeek! I screamed. That's an exaggerated reaction, Rudy. But it's dangerous to do that when I'm holding a knife. Sylphie, in a rare display, responded reproachfully to my scream. She quickly healed the wound on her finger. The way she wordlessly cast the spell was so natural, almost like it was second nature to her. I'm sorry, I won't hug you when you're cooking. Yes, just hold on a while. The food will be done in a moment. I retreated from the kitchen and waited in the dining area. Feeling restless and guilty, I sat in my chair and waited. Then, when Sylphie appeared from the kitchen, I lifted my head. I deeply apologize for what happened just a moment ago. Not really angry. You can just say you're sorry like normal. Oh, okay. Sorry, I corrected. That's better. Just be more careful next time. Sylphie sat down by me and we began to eat. Lately, I felt so loved, too loved, and I was scared of the recoil when her love for me ran out. So then, what is it? It's rare to see you that excited. Oh, yes, the letter from my father arrived. What? From Mr. Paul? I handed my surprised wife the letter. Her face was tense as she started reading it, but her expression soon turned to disappointment. Oh, our letter about getting married hasn't arrived yet. It seemed she'd wanted to know my family's reaction to us getting married. As she read further, her expression turned serious. And then, at the end, she murmured, I see. Then finally she said, That's great, Rudy. I'm glad everyone's safe. Yeah, come to think of it, I brought this up without a second thought, even though Sylphie had lost both her parents. Maybe I was a bit lacking in tact. Sylphie looked at my face and smiled sadly. Come on, Rudy, don't make that face. It's true that my mother and father are gone, but right now I have you and a Lynn Lease. I'm not lonely. And she'll have two sisters really soon, too. She grasped my hand as she said that and giggled. She'd gotten even cuter lately. Her extremely short hair had grown out, and she was starting to look more feminine. Her adorable ears jutted out between smooth strands of white hair. This girl was my wife. It wasn't a dream, was it? Sylphie, I wanted to create a new family with this cute girl. This desire came naturally, bubbling up to the surface, though Sylphie was the one who would struggle when it came to childbirth. She had an adorably tiny butt, but the narrowness of her hips might cause problems during birth. This world had healing magic, so death during childbirth was rare, but that didn't mean she wouldn't be in a great deal of discomfort. More importantly, were we actually ready to raise a kid? Honestly, Sophie and I didn't have much life experience. We had steady incomes, and we were considered to be of age in this world, but could we actually be parents to another human being? It's fine, I told myself. Every other living thing in the world managed just fine. I should be able to do it too. Even if I couldn't, I had Sophie with me. We just had to try our best. Paul would probably show up in another 2 years. Lilia was experienced in child rearing, and Zenith and Sylphie got along well. As for Paul, he'd probably just be excited to see his grandchildren. Wait, crap! This wasn't the time to be thinking about that. As you read in that letter, my sisters will be coming our way. I'm thinking about letting them live here with us, but I wasn't sure if you'd be okay with that, I said. Of course I am. The house will be a lot livelier, she replied with a toothy grin. No problems then. Once we finished eating dinner, we moved to the living area. It was time to study magic. I still couldn't cast healing spells without their incantations, but I could make do by memorizing the words and studying the theory. Voiceless casting wasn't the only technique out there. I did think I was talented, but far from the most talented in this world. Better to make sure my foundations are solid and that I maintain my current level of ability. Mm-hmm. Currently, Sophie was trying to disturb magic to neutralize the water ball I'd created. She had the tip of her finger pointed at my hand, and her face was bright red as she grunted. I was using my mana to maintain the water ball so as to make sure she couldn't neutralize it. If the undulating ball of liquid burst, she would be the winner. She would earn the right to do whatever she wanted to me in bed. Not that she really needed that right. All she had to do was say something and I'd go along with it. Meanwhile, if I could maintain the ball's shape until the end, I would be the winner. Then I could shower her with my affections in bed as much as I wanted. Though I guess I could do that even if I didn't win. Sylphie was currently advanced tier in all schools of offensive magic except fire. She also knew advanced healing and detoxification magic as well. In other words, her skill levels were as such: fire magic, intermediate; water magic, advanced; earth magic, advanced; wind magic, advanced; healing magic, advanced; detoxification magic, advanced. Extremely high stats. I only recently found this out, but those six types of magic are called the foundational six for the six most frequently used types. The university sought to have its students achieve beginner level proficiency in all six types during their second or third years. Once they did that, they could pick a major and spend their remaining years elevating their mastery to the advanced tier. If someone had no talent for magic, though, they'd stall out at the intermediate level, even if they devoted themselves to the study of just one type. Or their mana pool would be too small, or they could trip up on combined magic. There were almost no students who could reach the advanced tier in multiple fields, let alone rise to saint level, except students like Sylphie and Cliff supposedly. Uh, Exceptional students like Sylphie and Cliff supposedly came by only once every 10 years or so. Yet in recent years, there had been one such exceptional student at this school every single year. You could probably call them geniuses, but I honestly considered them ordinary. Compared to the monsters that people referred to as gods, what about me then? Based on what I'd heard from Batty Gaddy and Kishirika, my mana capacity was god level, but I got the feeling I'd never be god level myself. I was basically like your average car with the fuel tank of a passenger plane. I could go wherever distance I wanted without running out of gas, but my speed was unremarkable. If you added a jet engine to match that fuel tank, the car would fall apart. As a design concept, I was junk. Although it was nice to never run out of gasoline no matter how much I used. By the way, Sylphie? What? I'm concentrating right now. You think our kids will have a talent for magic too? What? Sylphie's concentration broke. Her still in uh, inchoate disturbed magic spell fizzled, and the previously undulating ball of water snapped back into a perfect sphere. I froze it and plopped it into the cup in front of me. Sylphie bashfully rubbed her thighs together, face bright red. We won't know until they're born, and them being born is all dependent on my hard work as your husband, right? I tried to laugh and play it off, but Sylphie started stroking my thigh. Her delicate hands tickled. I countered by rubbing between her shoulders. It felt kind of nice being able to touch her at this time of day. In seconds, the mood in our living room turned sexual. Sylphie buried her face in my neck as she wrapped her arms around me. So cute. Your hubby is about ready to start working hard right now, I thought. In any case, it was a bit hasty to talk about kids that hadn't even been conceived yet, let alone born. Don't count your chickens before they hatch, or whatever the phrase was. First, we needed an egg. Ah, but elf blood does run strong in me, so it may be difficult for me to. Um, I know you want to have kids, but it may take quite a few months or even years. My I mean, Miss Linelise told me the same thing, so there's a high probability I won't get pregnant right away. Sophie pulled away and hung her head, looking a bit anxious. Several months had passed since we got married, and we had a healthy sex life. It was a bit crude to say this, but the moment I pulled the trigger on my Magnum, I would shout phrases straight out of an eroge, things like "get pregnant" and the like. There wasn't really a deep meaning behind the words. I just wanted to try saying them in real life instead of a video game. Sylvie might have actually taken my words to heart, though. But, well, if I'm not able to have kids, you can take a mistress if you want. I have no plans of doing that right now. But Rudy, you want children, don't you? I tried seeing it from Sylvie's perspective. What if we discovered I was the infertile one and Sophie wanted to have children no matter what? So she found a different man to knock her up. I might kill myself if that happened. So I couldn't put Sylvie through it. Don't be silly. It's not that I want children, I just want a physical representation of our love for each other. Rudy, I love you, Sylvie. My princess. Although I was the one saying it, the words were still cheesy enough to make my skin crawl. As for Sylvie, well, the people in this world were incredibly susceptible to such lines. Recently, when I said, "Let us drink to the beauty in your eyes," she went all red. It was extremely effective, but we couldn't move on if she got embarrassed so easily. I love you too. Her lips moistened as she clung to my arm. Embarrassed, she pursed her lips, cheeks colored bright. A plus communication. Since things had gotten so exciting, it was time to move to the second floor. I picked her up like a princess. Sylphie wrapped her arms around my neck and surrendered her body to me. It made my heart pound. I was glad she was still in the mood. And that is it. Yo! All right, time to tally everything up. There we are, looking at. Look at Arrogant Water Dragon King. I don't remember the Water Dragon King at the moment, but I'll go back and be rereading a bunch of these soon. I have 40 crunches. Jesus Christ. 10 push-ups, 10 squats, 10 heel touches, and 10 right? Yeah, no, 20 heel touches. Staff. That's his name, and he cringed at it. All right, so let's get started on the jumping jacks, which are just 10. That's six, seven, okay. Two, six, 7, 8, 9. All right, I'm going to start with 20 crunches, move on to the rest of my exercises, and finish up with the other. Okay, 20 crunches. And I believe I have toe touch or heel touches. 20. Okay. And 10 push-ups. Alrighty, there we go. Got all the exercises done. All right, so next week. Oh, it's the name of his staff. Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. So next week, if I have this right, 10 through 12, and then the final bits. So next week should be the end of volume 10, if I remember this right. Let me look at the table of contents. Yeah, we got 10 breakdown, 11 three heads are better than one, 12 nostalgia and frustration. Then we'll have side story, the sharpening fangs, extra chapter, the master babysitter. And then that's it. So yeah, we got 3 chapters, a side story, and an extra chapter. And that's it. So yeah, next week will be the end of volume 11, right? We on 10 or 11? I don't even remember anymore, man. Where are we at? I think we're on 11, right? Am I losing my mind? Aren't we at like 11? I don't know. Or are we on volume 10? Oh, we're on volume 10. Really? Okay. I don't even know what's going. No, we are on volume 10. That's right. We're on volume 10 because 11 is. Yeah, yeah. We're on volume 10. 11 is. Let me get to Mushoku Tensei. Okay, so 11 is more about the sisters. And then I definitely know what 12 is about. There's no way I'm forgetting 12. So I guess you could say that turning point 3 is 12. For those of you that remember, turning point 1 was the Renoa displacement incident. Turning point 2 was when Rudy met Orsted. Turning point 3 will be in volume 12. I'm not going to tell you what that one's about. Turning point 4 is going to be in wait, what? Hang on a second. Aw. Oh, okay, there we go. I knew one was missing. Let's see. Okay, so I need to add 3, 4, 1, 3, and 4 to this. I got to volume 12. I mean, I guess you could say volume 14 could be turning point 4, but also volume 15. I don't know if I would count. I don't think I would. Not that anyway. Damn you. Okay. Look here, motherfucker. Get your shit. Okay, so all 15 volumes so far, that's what I have. I have all 15 volumes. Yeah. I wish I could organize them better. Like, I don't like how they. Some of these are just dumb in the way that they're spaced. The way that they're categorized is just annoying. View list. Okay, so yeah, we're 66% of the way through volume 10. We'll finish the last bit. 25, 15 English with one more Japanese to go. IIRC. So right now, uh, 16 volumes have been translated, but volume 16 doesn't get released until the end of this month. But it's been translated. like officially translated. The 25th of April is when Volume 16 goes up for sale on Kindle and electronic devices. If you want paperback, you have to wait another month. Paperback usually comes out a month after digital. So probably, I would say, you know what? Considering the way that Volume 14 ends, I would say that's probably turning point. That would probably be turning point 4. And then 15, I would say, is also turning point 5 because of what goes down in 15. 6 months in the UK? I'm guessing you're talking about for paperback, Rage. Yeah. I'm assuming you're talking about paperback because, bruh, that ain't. You should be able to get it digitally at the same time as everything else. Your light novel 16 diverges slightly from the light novel. What? Oh, the web novel. Okay. I've never read the web novel, so I wouldn't know. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, to be fair, with the web novels, it's kind of like a draft. The way that it's been explained by a lot of the authors is that web novels are kind of like the initial draft, and then when they get the light novel, or even if it's not, I mean, it's probably not their it's not their final draft. The web novel's not their final draft. Their final draft is the light novel because there's a lot of things that they wrote in the web novel that they're like, this doesn't work as well, or what I thought was cool at the time actually isn't, and they'll go back and they'll change stuff, or they'll tighten stuff up so that the story is more streamlined and stuff. So I will technically consider the light novel to be the official final draft of their story. So so I purposefully don't read the web novel stuff because a lot of there can be a lot of web novels that when they hit light novel, they're vastly different because like they've had a chance to improve their story, or now that they've gone back and looked at other things, they're like, oh, this didn't quite work. We need to like no, nix that. But yeah, 6 months for paperback. Well, honestly, then, Rage, I would say get it digitally because honestly, it's cheaper. It is. It's just much fucking cheaper. Though, I say that knowing that I'm getting the paperback copy of Slime Volume uh 13 on Tuesday, but that's mostly because Slime is probably the only series that I still collect physically at the moment. I will eventually get the rest of it in physical edition, but it's gonna be a while. Mushoku Tensei is not one of those aside from Volume 7 and Volume 7 stuff. I've heard that there are some minor differences between the two. Definitely feels like he's a bit more character differences between the two. Like Ariel is a very different character in the web novel versus the light novel because they skip over a lot of her, I guess you could say, nighttime proclivities. So you get a very different impression, and I think it will. I think that is mostly because now I'm guessing this is my personal take as another writer, but he probably looked at some of the stuff that he wrote about that character, all the details and stuff, and he was like, all of this is number one unneeded, and secondly, it gives you a very like having all that extra information makes you feel differently about his character than where he may have intended. So there may be stuff that you will leave out about a character as you do the novels that you're like, yeah, the, I don't want them focusing on that stuff. I want them focusing on this stuff. So let's just leave that out because it changes how you view the character. So there's been stuff that I've written that's like that. Yeah, it depends on the series. You pre-ordered volume 25 of In Another World. Kindle comes out in July, but the paper. Wait, In Another World with my smartphone? That reminds me, one of the others that I gotta get set up for soon. Oh, hey, I've got one. Oh, cool. There's 10. Uh, oh, guys, are you excited about Reincarnated as a Sword? I was really surprised to see that that was happening as an anime. Because I just finished. I read volume 10, and I was like, "Huh, how are they gonna do this?" And I'm not so sure. I like the design of the sword and how they're making the sword have eyes in the anime, but kind of cool. The trailer looks so serious. Well, I mean, the thing is, it is kind of serious. Uh, I will say that compared to a lot of the other light novel stuff we've been getting lately, uh, Sword is really cute. Like it's got intense, crazy fights, but it's also unbelievably cute and charming. It's definitely adorable and charming. There's a lot of that in there. But I don't want to say too much more than just that. I'd like you guys to experience it for yourself. I've also been thinking, should I get Grimgar Fantasy and Ash as my next light novel series that I'm looking at? There's a lot of isekai stuff that we're working on. Tony has officially announced, so I'm allowed to say it here. Tony has officially announced that Fat Dog is going to be doing a Shield Hero Abridged. Looking forward to that. Another world with my smartphone. That one time God let me keep my apps. That's what it should be called. I think that's really funny. That one time God let me keep my apps. All right. Guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate you hanging out with us. Uh I'm really loving it. I'm loving that this is going to be a thing. And we're going to finish up all of this volume next week and move into 11. 12 is the one where I'm really expecting it. I'm like, you guys, who those who don't know what's happening in volume 12, when we get to 12, it'll be some heavy shit that we're working on. Just saying. It's going to get rough. Uh Oh, smartphone light novel was better than the anime? Okay, gotcha. That having been said though, guys, I will see you all on either hopefully tomorrow for more What the Fell and Destiny 1 content. But if I don't see you tomorrow, I will see you on Monday for Slime. I may also do some daytime streaming on Monday as well. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, we'll see you guys later. Until then, bye bye for now. And yeah, take care.